Somewhere around 2016, I got really depressed and I realized that I probably had to talk to someone about it. I had never been to a therapist, but I just went on to like an online directory and I found someone that sounded good and I called her up and left a voicemail. And then the next day I got this call back. I think her name was Audrey. Nice person. And she's like, "Hey, what's going on? It sounded like from your message you were struggling with some issues." And um, I couldn't even like get a sentence out of my mouth. I was such a private, closed off person um, that I had no idea how to like share these things that I had been holding on to for years. So I was like stuttering and I couldn't even get the word depression out of my mouth. I was like, I think I'm feeling uh, you know, and then it ended up she didn't have any availability. So she kind of referred me to some other people. And then I hung up the phone, and my next thought was like, oh my God, what the fuck have I done? Because for my whole life, I had never told anyone anything that was like kind of deep or super private type personal information. And now, like, this person like knew something about me. Like, this little like part of my mind that shouldn't have been out in the world was now out in the world, and I had no control over it. And as soon as I got off the call, I had this feeling like there's this scene in the movie Office Space where his character Peter puts a confession in an envelope and slides it under his boss's desk because he's been stealing money from the company. And this is exactly how I felt like after I got off that call. My first instinct was like, I have to get that piece of information back. So I came to this point where there were basically two roads that I could go in. I could go back to the road that I had been on, which is being like this super sheltered, like never tell anyone, like personal information type of person. Or I could kind of like go deeper down the rabbit hole. Well, I guess it wouldn't be deeper down the hole, but like I could come more out of the rabbit hole and I could start talking about all these things which I had thought were personal information, you know? And so I did. I went to another therapist and I went to a therapist after that. And I just, like, week after week, I just started talking about all of these things that I thought that I would never talk about, that weren't okay to talk about, that people would judge me for talking about. But that was really only like one person. It was daunting, but it was behind closed doors. So in 2020, I took things a step further and I started doing this 365 comics challenge where I posted a comic every day. I started talking about mental health and anxiety and depression and being suicidal and all these things. And that, again, sort of just like opened me up creatively. You know, I had been this very closed off person, and I think it was limiting my whole life. And then after that, I started a YouTube channel and I started posting about barefoot shoes. And then I got into all kinds of personal stuff like talking about brain fog and I don't know, like my weight, like being bald, you know. All of these things that I had just never talked about, I just started talking about. And not only that, but I was talking about it to like complete strangers. um, and over the course of all of this, I started to notice a lot of people in my life, friends and family and so forth, had this attitude of like being very private and not sharing anything that they were struggling with and just sort of holding on to it for years and years and years. And it was like one of those moments where you're up at a really high point, like I am right now, up in this tree, you know, like really nice view. And you sort of look around at you and you realize how far you've come from not sharing anything about yourself to sharing everything about yourself. And a lot of these people that are in my life, who are private people, um, they seem to have this belief that, like, it's sort of the Aborigine, am I saying that right? Aborigine belief that if someone takes a picture of you, like it's like a piece of your soul that you've lost. And I used to think like that, but now I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a piece of your soul that you gain every time you give something away, but it's sort of like a release of weight. You know, it's like this thing that you were carrying around with you, you're no longer carrying around with you, and you feel lighter, and you can do things like climb trees. Either physically or emotionally or spiritually, you can climb trees and you can get up to much higher places when you're not lugging all this stuff around. Um, I think before I started talking about all of this stuff, I was much more like aggressive. I had the personality of like a high security prison. When anyone would get near a topic that was sensitive to me, like being skinny or depression or mental health or finances or anything like that, you know, it was like my security guard personality would come out and I would get angry or defensive and whatever. And I think the beautiful thing about being an unprivate person, and the thing that's brought me a lot of joy, is that you sort of move deeper within yourself. Like, instead of being this massive empire of ideas that you feel like you have to protect, like your identity as a person becomes this very small core of ideas. And there are definitely things that I still haven't shared with people at large, and yeah, maybe I will at some point. Um, but I think it is nice to hold on to a few things, and it's sort of like minimalism in general, you know, because if you have a mansion full of stuff, there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that because you're clinging on to all of those possessions. Um, so I think that being an unprivate person is sort of like living a minimalist lifestyle mentally. You know, you're just letting go of all of these things that you were worried about being judged for. And on a topic of being judged, like people, like if you're a private person and you're watching this, let me tell you, like people don't give a shit about anything that you say for the most part. Like if you think that you're gonna scandalize yourself or whatever, or I don't know, people are gonna criticize you, like no one cares. You know, I put all this stuff out here about like doing psychedelics and I don't know, weird stuff like barefoot shoes and all of my strange life choices, and for the most part, like no one cares. And the people who do care are the people that I want to connect with. Um, the the people that are like struggling with the same issues, and they're like, oh, you know, thank you so much for making a video about this because I'm struggling with this and I haven't known what to do about it and I feel like I can't talk about it. So that's the other thing to being an unprivate person, is it's sort of like a gift to other people who are struggling with the same things and you know and don't know how to express themselves. Um, have we run the course on this talk? I feel like there was something else that I wanted to say about this. I did have one thought, which is like I seem to notice that the people who are the most private are oftentimes skinny people, like me. Um, and I think it's because skinniness goes along with like a rejection of the outside world. You know, like you're literally sort of your body is like rejecting, I don't know, food or something, or it's rejecting fat, which fat is sort of like storing the outside world within yourself. You know what I mean? So that's an interesting observation. You can just kind of like walk around in your daily life and notice what people are private and unprivate, and you can look at yourself too, and you can think like, like what things am I private about, and would it be worth it to share that with the world in some way? Like even if it's just journaling, journaling can be really helpful. Making music, making art, and then, yeah, the more people you share it with, the less worried you are about that thing, that problem that you thought that was such a big deal. It's not a big deal. And then you can just talk about anything with anyone with no fear. And that's the kind of vibe that you would want for a life, right? That's what we're all after. We just want to enjoy sitting very high up in a tree and enjoying the openness of life.